Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, my friends, it is good to be back here behind the microphone. We were out a couple of days at the EAA Air Show in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, as I adjust. There we go. EAA Air Show in Oshkosh for just a couple of days. Had a great time with my brother, a great time with my son. Appreciate Chris Dunham and Gary Varvel filling in here for a couple of days as I was out of town. And of course, it's good to be back. So here we are. I want to talk. Since I've been gone, there's been a lot of news and development regarding election integrity, specifically in the state of New Jersey, where the governor there, Mikey Sherrill, a Democrat, actually had to admit earlier this week that they found people on the voter rolls, 6,600 in fact, according to what they've told us. I mean, who ultimately knows here? But anyway, I want to talk about this. This is actually evidence. I want to go through this, and I challenge you, if you're a leftist out there, a Democrat out there, someone who is in defense of our current election system, the amount of integrity within it, the loopholes, the vulnerabilities in it. If you are one of these people who have been shifting the goalposts, which I'm going to talk directly about this today, I want you to tell me why you think I'm wrong. Like an adult, try to be a big boy or a big girl. Try to not come here with expletives and name calling. Just say, this is why I think you're wrong, Todd. I think you're wrong because of this. I want you to do that. I don't think you can. I don't think you've got it in you, because I've heard from a lot of you. I don't read the comments, but we have ways of getting that information. And I got to tell you that I see you overreacting and acting like petulant little children. I don't even want to say that. It's a put down to children, the way that I see these folks acting. It's vulgar. It's full of rage and vitriol. You don't have to agree with me. That's fine. I literally do not care. But talk to me. Explain this to me like an adult. Explain to me when we have now had evidence presented to you by a Democrat mayor in the state of New Jersey, and we're going to go through this. Explain to me why I'm wrong. Explain to me why we should not pass the Save America Act. Do it. I welcome you to do it right here on this page. You can email Todd at toddhuffshow.com. You can text me, 317-785-1030. You can do that. Just tell me. Tell me why I'm wrong and there is no evidence, when in fact there is evidence of vulnerabilities within our election system. Friends, are you tired of spending your hard-earned money at businesses that turn around and support leftist causes, leftist candidates? Well, that's exactly why we created Freedom Marketplace. It is a free, searchable directory of businesses that you can use and find businesses that actually share your values. Businesses that have vowed not to support leftist candidates, leftist causes. There is no login required. There are no strings attached, just good patriotic businesses pushing the same direction you are. Check it out today, freedommarketplace.net. That is freedommarketplace.net, liberty and business for all. Let's get right to this today. This happened while I was out at the EAA Air Show. By the way, can I say about that really quickly? If you're a fan of aviation, if you have not been to the EAA Air Show, I highly encourage you to do this. If you like flying, if you like airplanes, if you like military aircraft. Again, I saw the F-22 Raptor, the most amazing jet. It is unbelievable what this thing can do. Saw the F-35 as well, which is also amazing. Saw F-16s. I miss the B-1B bomber, which I love. They had the A-10 there. This is just an incredible place to see aviation, to watch these guys land, just coming in. It becomes the busiest airport, the busiest airspace in the country for a week. And they are coming in one plane on top of another, landing on dots, coming in at 90-degree angles. It is wild, wild stuff to watch. Had a great time. But anyway, that's where we've been. Now that I'm back here, and this stuff happened whenever I was out, let me just give you the facts. Mikey Sherrill, the Democrat governor of the state of New Jersey, she recently announced that 6,000 approximately, we got to give approximations because I'm telling you right now, take this to the bank. Nobody knows. They don't know, or they don't want to tell you. 6,600 non-U.S. citizens were mistakenly, she said, added to New Jersey's voter rolls. Those registrations allegedly came between June of 2023 and June of 2024. The officials in the state of New Jersey said the problem was related to a software error involving the Motor Vehicle Commission voter registration system. So when you go in to vote, or when you go into what they call the MVC, I guess, Motor Vehicle Commission. We call it the BMV here, Bureau of Motor Vehicles. But whatever, when you go into the license branch to get your license renewed or whatever, there is a system that also can register you to vote. Well, there are some people who are non-citizens who get driver's licenses or other permits or whatever they would be getting from the license branch. And those non-citizens were then allowed to register to vote. Now, this was not something that was intentional on the part of the non-citizen, but it was in the system. So they would mark a box that says, I'm not a citizen, but yet the system still letted the voters go through. There's more about that I'll tell you here in a moment, because they're trying to find someone to blame in the state of New Jersey. So the state says the affected individuals had indicated again that they were not U.S. citizens when applying for driver's licenses or identification cards, but nevertheless registered to vote due to the system failure. Now pause for a moment. These are the people who actually followed the rules as far as what to tell the system, to tell the system that they were. Now you'll find that some of these folks voted. These are people who did not follow the rules, but these are the people who followed the system. Let this sink in for just a moment. These are the people who were not trying to circumvent election loopholes. These were people who were not trying to find a way to get on the registration rolls, which we know exist. We absolutely know that it's just like anything else. If there is it doesn't matter what it is. If you put up a speed limit sign, people are going to speed. If you say no parking, there are going to be people who park in an area. It's the way that we operate. There are people that absolutely try to get on the voter rolls who are not supposed to be there. That's not this group. So these are the ones who followed the law. These are the ones who did what the system was set up to do. And you can immediately see, as I've told you, I am blown away. Listen, I have no problem with data, going through the data and the analysis and all that sort of stuff to point out where the real problems and vulnerabilities exist. Data is a good thing. But there's something else that we all have, even when we don't have the data. Because let's just be honest here. We're not given the data. We're not given the real information. If they've told us there are 6,600 non-U.S. citizens on their voter rolls that were added there in the past, between June of 2023 and June of 2024, everything within me knows that there are more people who have gotten onto that system outside of those years. Everything within my body and in my mind is screaming, that's what they're willing to admit. That's what they've actually found. This is so mismanaged. These voter rolls are so terribly mismanaged as a collective, as a whole, across the 50 states and the District of Columbia. This stuff is so mismanaged that this, I'm telling you, is just scratching the surface. This is one state. What do you think California's looks like? Remember, let's look at what we found in, say, the state of Minnesota, thanks to a young man who's candidly putting his life on the line to tell you, to tell me, to tell the American people what's actually happening in, for example, Somali daycare centers in the state of Minnesota. He literally, Nick Shirley, literally got the sitting governor of Minnesota to drop out of the race for re-election. He exposed that level of fraud. Though that is fraud in the system that determines where taxpayer dollars, where welfare dollars, where these social safety net dollars end up and who actually receives them. And there's all sorts of evidence that it has been, that there have been people who have been manipulating the system, fabricating things in order to get the money and actually doing nothing with it that they were supposed to be doing, other than building effectively a shell daycare center in the state of Minnesota, just as an example. So this sort of stuff is running rampant. Nobody in the media cares to report on this. They have no interest in this. Kudos to the governor, a Democrat here, for actually taking to the podium and announcing this, because I was told, you were told for the past several years that there was no evidence of any of this. And this is, my friends, actual evidence. And that's something else I want to talk about for a moment. The left has changed, has moved the goalpost multiple times on this. At first it was, there's no evidence that this ever happens. This is a crime that, doesn't exist. These are things that never happen. And now there's evidence, there's literally evidence from their own governors, Democrat governors, a governor in this case, who says, here's 6,600 people, 400 of which we know have voted. Now that's again what they're telling us. That's what they're willing to admit. I don't mean to be harp on something here too much, because I don't want to I don't want to unnecessarily portray the opposite side, the opposing side here incorrectly. But they don't mind doing it to me. They don't mind telling, in fact, they're more than happy to misrepresent who I am and what I think, what conservatives believe, what Trump believes, all this sort of stuff. And so I know some people just genuinely believe it. They hear it, they just repeat it. They say, hey, the people who have the credentials have told me that there's nothing to see here, nothing to be afraid of. The problem is that I have a brain and you have a brain, and we know how the government is run, and we see mismanagement at every turn. We've seen what Doge uncovered. We've seen all these things that Nick Shirley has uncovered, or people like James O'Keefe have uncovered. We see this happening. We see it. There's plenty of evidence, but we're told in this particular area, there's nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. In fact, they tell us there is no evidence. And I want to sit here for a moment too, because I looked up what the actual definition, technical definition of evidence is, to make sure that everybody understands what they're actually claiming here. Evidence is information, facts, or objects that help prove, listen to that, help prove whether a belief or proposition is true or false. It acts as a foundation for drawing conclusions and ranges from everyday clues to formalized data used in scientific research or a court of law. So evidence is not proof. When you have enough evidence, evidence can be definitive proof, practically speaking, video evidence, certain testimony and so forth, eyewitness testimony. But again, proof is a different level. Proof is something that says the evidence is undeniable. The evidence points to the fact that this is what happened. So no one here, I haven't said, and I use my words very carefully, I've not said that there's proof of anything, but there is tons of evidence. Evidence can, again, be anything from everyday clues, according here to the definition. So, for example, if just hypothetically, that a governor of a blue state takes to the podium and says, look, we found 6,600 people on our voter rolls that were not supposed to be there, and we know that at least 400 of them vote, that is evidence. Now, you can come at me. Leftists, come at me. Tell me that that's not evidence. Tell me now, if you're watching this on Facebook, if you see this clip posted somewhere, tell me. Tell me below how this is not evidence, how finding 6,600 people on the voter rolls in a blue state who aren't supposed to be there, how is that not evidence that this is happening? It is evidence. It's obviously evidence. But see, now they're moving the goalposts. Now they're saying things like, well, these are not, this is not widespread. This is not, this is not a massive problem. This is not intentional. It's just the sort of thing. In fact, I got a clip here from Abby Phillips from CNN. I don't watch Abby Phillips's program. Every once in a while, we have something from Abby Phillips, and it's usually preposterous and absurd. She's on here telling us, well, there's a flashback. There's a clip that's about a year and a half old saying that Trump has provided no evidence. So now she's defending and trying to explain away the evidence that does exist, which I'll go ahead and play that really quickly. Abby Phillips, again, this is going to be split. A clip from about a year and a half ago, which she's talking about. Trump at that time had been in office for 12 months. He'd provided no evidence that this stuff had been happening. And then it fast forwards to what she was saying this week in the wake of all this information, all these 6,000 some odd voters who were not supposed to be on the voter rolls. Now she's changed her tune. She's changed her tune here. Here's Abby Phillips of CNN doing just that. I've got to unmute that.
Not come up with any of this purported evidence of voter fraud. You guys are in search of something that there's been no evidence.
No evidence.
New Jersey is double checking its voter rolls tonight after a software error added 6,600 non-citizens to the voter rolls. The suggestion that this is fraud suggests that these people were trying to vote. Sometimes what happens is that when state systems are incorrect, people receive information and they are confused. Where some people who are ineligible to vote are not aware that they're ineligible to vote. I do think whether it is widespread or not matters. I do think that the numbers actually matter. He's been in office.
Moving the goalposts. A year ago, she was saying he's been in office. Trump had been in office for a year. He's provided no evidence that this is happening. Now she's saying there's no evidence that this is widespread. She even suggested that it might be. I don't know, she said, if it's widespread or not. But basically, it's not going to change my reporting. It's not going to change it because we have drawn a line here. We have told the American people, the 500 viewers who watch CNN on a given night, we've told them repeatedly, consistently, that there is no voter fraud. There's nothing to see here. There is no evidence. And when there's actual evidence, they're now going to move the goalpost. That's exactly what they've done. It's pathetic, as it usually is when these leftists get involved. But that's where we are. That's where we are. They're denying it. They're lying about it. They don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to use your thinking brain. Friends, it doesn't take someone, you don't have to have all the information, all the data, all the research. And candidly, you're never going to have that. All you have to have is a little bit of common sense. To the left, government is God. It's not to me, my friends. God is God. Government is important. Having the ability to maintain what we have been given in this country, this constitutional republic, it is a gift of God. We have been blessed by people who have gone before us that, again, set up this country in ways that is truly unique and remarkable. Our founding fathers and the people that came after them who have steered this country in the right direction, who have maintained a course that led us to true north. People who defended liberty, who said you're not going to be a subject to another person. You're your own person, created in the image of God, that you have certain unalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. People that have gone before us, that came after the founders, who have defended these ideas, the people who have defended this country and given their lives for this country, and the people who have fought for these things domestically, have put us in a wonderful place today, my friends. And we are indeed blessed to be here. They hate this place. They want to remake it into something that it's not. They want to deny that there's any foundations in Christianity in this country, which is absurd and absolutely laughable. because the evidence is all over the place. But yet it's not when you don't have to, when nobody knows it, and when you pretend that it's not, and you deceive the people on a daily basis. That's what we're dealing with here. They don't want you to know the level of the problem because candidly, they know that they benefit from the problem. And the degree to which it actually exists, which I don't think anyone actually knows, but it is a big problem. It is at least, forget about the data, forget about what can be proven, just from using your common sense and your thinking, you know that this has to be tightened up. You know that whatever caused 6,600 illegal, well, they're not illegal aliens. It's not people who are illegal voters. They're not supposed to be voting. Whatever caused them to get into the system needs to be stopped. And I'm telling you, this is just the very, very tip, just the smallest little point on the tip of the iceberg. This is a massive problem. Trump is still out there pushing the Save America Act, even though Senate Majority Leader Thune has not been cooperative, has basically said they're not going to pursue this in the Senate. But I'm telling you, we need to keep the pressure up on these folks. If there's one thing that they fear, it is an engaged American electorate. It is a group of people who have made known to them that this is an important issue and that you're not going to let them skate by here without doing something about it, that you demand and expect this to be voted on in some capacity, that you expect Senator Thune and your senator in your state. There's only 100 of these guys, my friends. Only 100 of these people who hold U.S. Senate seats. We need to, in turn, hold these folks accountable. They're telling us what they can't do, snatching, again, defeat from the jaws of victory, as Republicans are so good at doing, if I can be so blunt and candid. So we'll talk about where we stand with the passage, the potential passage of the Save America Act. I've got a clip from Mike Lee, senator from the great state of Utah, saying there's literally no reason to be against this. He's right, by the way. I'll get to that after this short timeout. Friends, let's be honest. When your financial world starts getting a little bit more complicated, you need more than one-size-fits-all advice. That's where Full Suite Wealth shines the brightest. Their team specializes in working with families and individuals at your particular level, offering personalized guidance that goes far beyond the basics, from private equity and private credit to options, strategies, and coordinated legal planning. Full Suite Wealth helps you see the big picture and make confident decisions about your legacy. It's all about having a dedicated team to guide you each and every step of the way so you can focus on what matters most to you, your family, your goals, and of course, your future. If you want real confidence in your financial life, head on over to fullsuitewealth.com today. That's fullsuitewealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. Time out here for me, my friends. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Senator Mike Lee of Utah is absolutely right. There is not a single legitimate argument, not a single reason to be opposed to the Save America Act. Again, this is the piece of legislation that is designed to tighten up our elections. It is designed to make people, when they register, provide actual documentation that proves they are eligible to vote. This is the legislation. Of course, there's a couple versions of this, but the actual Save America Act also includes voter photo ID. Photo ID for voters when they go to the polls, and it eliminates mass mail-in ballots, which, dare I say, is one of the most, well, perhaps the largest loophole in election integrity and security that exists today. I am not talking about absentee ballots. I'm not saying that people should not be given the right to vote by mail. That's not what I'm arguing. I am saying that those ballots should not be sent out to every person. The default should be you should vote in person unless there is a reason that you cannot do this. This is common sense. This is absolutely common sense. I've seen some knuckleheads and clowns who have actually claimed that by not sending mail-in ballots out to every registered voter. Now, keep in mind, if New Jersey did this, if New Jersey sent ballots out to every voter, there would have been 6,600 ballots that were sent out to people that should not have received them. That's what we know. That's through their own admission. That is one state. That is, don't tell me that that's not a vulnerability. If they were to do that, if they were to send out ballots to all the people, including the 6,600 who were on the voter rolls, if they that weren't supposed to be there, if they did do that, what would have happened then? How many other votes would have come in? What about the votes that are the ballots that go to people who don't vote? And then someone else comes and potentially collects these ballots, either has the person sign it or forges the signature. Listen, there's been all sorts of testimony from people who said that signatures on ballots didn't match. There's been testimony from people that signatures all matched the same hand. Not all of them, but in groups, there were signatures that matched one another for different people, where it appeared that at least potentially that someone was signing people's names. The same person was hand signing people's names. That wasn't that person. Listen, there's all sorts of evidence like this. There may be explanations for it. There may be a reason something happened. There may be something that we're missing here, but to pretend that there's no evidence is simply deceitful. And the Save America Act is absolutely logical. It is absolutely consistent with common sense and what should happen in this country. The odds are against us, but we need to keep the pressure on these knuckleheads and clowns. Mike Lee is doing just that on the floor of the U.S. Senate. I'll get to that, my friends, in un momento here. But, my friends, MyPillow, you may have heard me talk about them. They've been a partner of ours now for several years. I love MyPillow. I have a MyPillow. I'll tell you what I like about it. Two main things. If you're watching on the video, you can see that I've got a big head and I've got broad shoulders and I am a side sleeper. And I like that I can take the MyPillow and adjust it so that it fits nicely under my big old head as I lay on my side with my broad shoulders. I like that it fits in there to support my neck at the angle that is comfortable and that I like. The other thing I like is the cooling technology. I don't mind. I actually love the heat. In fact, the other day, it's been hot here. It's been hot here in my area for some time. I don't know if it's going back to my old football days when you would practice, have your two-a-days and full pads, and it would be blazing hot. I don't know if it takes me back to that, but I like it. I like the heat, but I don't like the heat when I'm trying to sleep. And the cooling technology keeps that pillow cooler than most pillows, and I like it. You can get your own MyPillow. You can get it at a discounted price with promo code Todd. Why wouldn't you, my friends? There's other products there as well, including bed sheets and towels, dog beds and slippers, a whole lot more. MyPillow.com is the website. Again, MyPillow.com. Promo code Todd's going to save you on virtually everything there. Again, MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. Let's talk about Senator Mike Lee. Comes to the floor of the U.S. Senate, which, of course, the very U.S. Senate that Republicans are in charge of, but yet they are not doing what they can, or at least the Senate Majority Leader is not doing what he can to push through the Save America Act. Again, the Save America Act is absolutely something that needs to be done. The Save America Act, again, if you're just joining us this segment, we've talked about this extensively the past several months, weeks on this program, but it does three basic things. One, it prevents, it creates the necessity to provide documentation when you register to vote on the front end of an election. And the part of the process where you actually register, you have to bring documentation to prove you are eligible to vote in elections. And again, many of you hearing me say this, you might have thought, well, why aren't we doing that already, Todd? Well, we should be doing it already, but we don't. We have 50 states plus the District of Columbia that manage their own processes through all sorts of different ways. And some states basically only have you sign an affidavit that says, I promise you, I pinky promise I'm eligible to vote. That's the process for some folks. For some states. In addition to that, of course, the other thing is that you provide photo ID. Again, there's a couple of variations of this act, but the one that's passed the House had a voter ID. I don't. The one that they've been debating in the Senate or had debated or talked about has a voter ID provision where you have to show photo ID. So that's the second part of this. It makes perfect sense. The vast majority of Americans are in favor, even Democrats. Like 70-something% of Democrats, I think I read, that are in favor of photo ID. Why wouldn't you be? Of course. Of course you should be in favor of that. Of course, if you go in person, you should be able to prove that you are the person that's casting the ballot. The picture on that ID should match the face on that person who walks into the voting booth. This, again, is absolutely common sense. I don't need to know how many people have done it. I don't need research and data that they can manipulate. I have a brain to say that is a perfectly legitimate safeguard to make sure that the person that went into that booth is the person who's on this registration form in our system, and the documentation they provided matches what they provided, who they told us they were when they registered to vote. This is just, again, basic common sense. There's no reason to be against this. And the last piece of this is to say there's not going to be mass mail-in ballots, which means we're not going to simply say every person who's a registered voter in the state of whatever, we're going to send you a ballot in the mail. We're just going to drop millions of ballots in the mail and say, have at it. We hope that these things get back to us and that the right person fills it out. That's just preposterous. That is so ridiculously stupid to do that. Now, if you can't get to the polls, if you want to request a absentee ballot, this is how it works in my state. It's worked fine in my state of Indiana for a long time. That's perfectly legitimate. But to put these ballots indiscriminately into the mail system and expect that none of these things come back fraudulent or filled out by a person who wasn't the name on the ballot is just absurd. I don't know how thick-skulled someone has to be to not see that possibility. Anyway, Mike Lee says there's no reason to be against the Save America Act. Here he is on the floor of the U.S. Senate.
Never at the time could we have predicted how much attention this would get, and never at the time could we have predicted the absurdity of the arguments that would be raised against this. Because, Mr. President, if you're careful, if you listen carefully, what you will find is that there is not a legitimate argument against the Senate passing the Save America Act. No, not
right.
Even one.
Not even half.
The arguments that you will hear against it over and over and over again are based entirely on contrivance, on pretext, on false statements and false assumptions.
And lies.
Look, at the end of the day, the Save America Act is about reestablishing and restoring
100%
trust in U.S. elections. That trust needs to be restored, especially in light of facts that we've discovered just over the last few days.
That's right. New Jersey.
As of just Friday, the Department of Homeland Security announced that there are 278,000, that's over 250,000 non-citizens registered to vote in U.S. elections in just 4 states alone. This doesn't count all of them. This is 278,000 non-citizen votes just in the states of California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada. Now that, Mr. President, is a problem. When you add to that the other states that have refused to cooperate, that have made it very difficult for us to ascertain how many non-citizen votes they might have registered in their states, they're not cooperating. That's one of many problems that we face here. Fortunately, Mr. President, this is a problem that Congress can solve.
It can.
It's a problem that it can solve.
That's right.
And therefore must solve.
And you do that through this. I got to take a break. You do that through the Save America Act. That's the point here. I'm out of time this segment. Quick timeout on my end, my friends. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Third final segment of today's program. New Jersey, the governor there, Mikey Sherrill, says that the software company is to blame. This software company who's in charge of registering or providing the software, the technology that registers people to vote at their license branch, at their Department of Motor Vehicles or whatever it's called there. But the software vendor believe it's pronounced Idemia, says, whoa, 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 not so fast. I'll get into that here in just a moment, my friends. There's a lot of confusion, though, out there about Kratom. You've probably heard the headlines, and most of those headlines are based on the synthetic junk that is not real Kratom at all. Real Kratom is natural, it's tested, it's handled with care, and that is exactly what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. They are a family-run company. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch they produce is lab tested. There are no chemicals, there are no fillers, there are no shortcuts. This is a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations, and it can be a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with a warning label that is a mile long. So, go to their website. There are restrictions in some states. See where your state is. And candidly, if it's not permitted to be sold in your state, you could reach out to your state about potentially changing the laws. I know lots of states, or several states, I should say. Most of the states, this is permitted. It's a controlled it's something that's controlled, but it's still eligible for sale. But in some states, it's not. And if it isn't, you can talk to your state. Chances are decent that they're at least considering legislation to make this a legal thing that you can purchase as well. But if you can make the purchase in your state, you start with the Kratom Starter Pack. Coupon code Todd Huff will save you 10% off your first order. Again, website, ChristopherOrganicBotanicals.com. That's Christopher's organicbotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, and transparency, my friends. So, Mikey Sherrill says the vendor's system in New Jersey transmitted data from the registration at the license branch into the voter registration files, right? So the person sitting there, they're getting a new driver's license or whatever, some form of an identification card. The state of New Jersey, the governor there says that the system, the software, was just sending these people indiscriminately into the voter registration system. And the vendor says, wait a minute, that's not exactly what happened here. They say that the people who were completing the form on their end, the actual person at the license branch, had indicated that they were not citizens. It says that it transmitted that information to the state of New Jersey as they wanted it, and that New Jersey election officials ultimately approved the registrations that said that those people were not citizens, and that the system operated, the system that they put in place did exactly what the state instructed the software vendor to do according to their specifications. Who do you believe here? I know who I believe. Look, we don't know, but my instinct immediately is to believe the software vendor. Do I believe that the state of New Jersey turned a blind eye to this? I believe that that's total. I think that that's likely. I think that they don't care. I think that there are people within the system that actually like this. They like this to happen. They like there to be vulnerabilities because they know that there are people out there on the left who are actively looking for ways to exploit this. That's what I think. That's what I think. And they also, listen, just statistically, you got someone who's out there willing to break the law to go in there and vote. They're not trying to do so for conservative candidates. These are people who like a big system. These are the people who like a system that existed in Minnesota, where some of these things can be manipulated, taxpayer dollars redistributed. There's no surprise here who the people are who are benefiting and manipulating and looking for vulnerabilities in the system here. But I know who I believe. It doesn't mean that they've proven it beyond a shadow of a doubt. But if you just asked me, Todd, the state says that it's the vendor's fault. The vendor says they gave the state exactly what the system specifications were. I bet that there's somewhere a document that says what this system is supposed to do. And I would almost, I've not seen it. Just I've been around this. I've followed this stuff. I'm aware of how this stuff works. You are too. I'm telling you, if I don't bet, but if I was a betting man and I had to place a bet here, I would place a bet that the vendor is right, that they did exactly what they were told to do, and that the state either didn't know or didn't care, or worse yet, maybe it's exactly what they wanted. But this is exactly this is working exactly as it was set up to work, and this is what they're willing to admit. This is what they're willing to acknowledge. How much bigger is this when you factor in all 50 states? When you factor in the District of Columbia? When you factor in all the other ways that our system can be compromised, from mass mail-in voting ballots out there floating around in the mail stream. When you look at the evidence, say, from the documentary 2,000 Mules, when you think about the other ways that they're exploiting the system that we haven't even begun to understand or become aware of yet, this is not surprising, my friends. This is a problem. We have to pass the Save America Act, and I've got to run. Thanks for listening, SDG.